I didn't know you could hire a private investigator by clicking Book Now under a viral video. But that's exactly what I did on a Tuesday night while the rain threaded itself down our windows and my husband, Owen, slept with one hand spread over his chest like a priest at rest. The apartment smelled like coffee grounds and wet wool, the way Seattle likes to baptize everything in November. My phone glowed against my face as if it wanted me to confess. I didn't. I paid a deposit. The woman on TikTok called herself Nova Shaw, though her profile said license in WA and or, with an asterisk that led nowhere. Her clips were edited like mini-movies, dash cam angles, slow zooms through windshields, grainy stills of hands almost touching. She'd narrate in a cool, calm voice how a wife trusted her gut and a PI brought the truth to light. In one video, the suspect wore Owen's exact navy beanie, and something in me bristled like a cat held wrong. 2 rooms away, our dishwasher clicked like a metronome learning to love itself. I could hear Owen's sleep-rough snore sawing in gentle arcs, cutting the dark into manageable blocks. He and I had been married 2 years, together 5, bound by 1,000 shared groceries and the shape of each other's toothbrush cups. He still called me kid when I walked past him in socks. He still packed me orange slices when I had edit days and forgot to eat. He still smelled like cedar soap and cologne that had survived 3 rebrands. Still, there was that text. A month ago. We should talk, Owen. Coffee. No contact saved. He had turned his phone face down with the easy practiced motion of a magician palming a coin. That was the first time I learned a new sound. So I watched Nova's sizzle reel, sunsads reflecting in rearview mirrors, her hand sliding GPS pins into place, captions like, "Cheaters hate receipts." The microphone caught city noises I recognized, the slap of wet tires, a ferry horn like a tired whale. On impulse or hunger, I messaged her, "Do you take cases in Seattle?" She hearted the DM in under a minute, then, "Always. Tell me everything." By dawn, I had given her our schedules, the coffee shop on 3rd where Owen liked the 2-bitter brew, the running route Owen traced along the Berghaven like a repeated prayer. I sent money. I sent trust. I sent something I couldn't name. I didn't know then that I'd hired someone who disinfected her conscience with attention, and that my story would become her favorite meal. But I felt a draft in the room, a hairline crack in the window I couldn't find. It whistled when I breathed. What would it sound like when it broke? And what exactly did I think I wanted to learn? I'm Mara, 31. I write copy for a home goods brand that sells candles named things like Rain-Washed Porch and After the Storm. The job taught me to bottle feelings, to distill a place into 4 words and a price. I kept the lights on. I kept the metaphors neat. I kept the towels folded on the second shelf because Owen liked to reach and not bend. We met when my building's elevator stalled between floors during a windstorm. He was in a soaked denim jacket, hair dripping. He offered me a ginger chew from his pocket, like an apology from the weather. When the car jerked and the lights flickered, I grabbed his forearm without asking permission. He said, "It's okay," in a steady voice that made the stuck box feel bigger than it was. After, he walked me to my door and stood in the hall as if he could keep it from tilting. Owen is, or was, then, a software engineer. He liked puzzle games that involved moving blocks until everything clicked into place. He built us a spreadsheet to split expenses, so precisely it felt like a love letter to fairness. He's taller than me by a head and a quiet meter. He doesn't shout even when cheering for the Mariners on TV, just smiles small and certain. The first time he slept over, he lined up his boots next to my sneakers as if they were introducing themselves. We got married at Golden Gardens on a day the sky behaved. My cousin sang, my mother cried discreetly, and the wind pressed my veil against my neck like a shy hand. We promised each other the ordinary things. Patience, coffee refills, a shoulder when the other forgot how to stand, and we kept those promises, mostly. The marriage was more equator than equinox, steady, bright, often humid. There were hairline fractures, sure. Every couple collects them the way windows collect sea salt dust. I worked late. He brought his laptop to bed. He wanted to try for a baby after year 2. I wanted a promotion. Then maybe a houseplant I only killed once. I told him we were too cramped for a crib. He redid the closet to find space, as if space were a math problem and not a mood. He's a fixer. I'm a describer. Sometimes he wanted fewer words and more action. Sometimes I wanted the action to wait for better lighting. About 6 months before Nova slid into my DMs, Owen changed. Not loudly. He started running earlier, like the dawn had something to tell him. He paused at crosswalks longer, even when the signal blinked. On Sundays, he left his phone at home, which he called unplugging, though it felt like he was plugging into something else. When I asked, he shrugged, smiling a soft, crooked smile that kissed my anxiety on the forehead and told it to go play. Everything okay, I'd say? Always, he'd say, like a wish disguised as a fact. Then came the late nights, and then the text, and then the way he laughed at nothing when he read something on his screen and angled the phone so that lap made a white lake across it. I moved through our apartment like someone learning a choreography a beat behind. Meanwhile, my own edges frayed. Work pressed, friends married, my mother sent me links to modest houses with modest prices and commented, "One day," with a flower emoji that smelled like pressure. I'd scroll TikTok at 2 a.m. like a raccoon pawing a bright trash can, pulling out videos of women who followed their intuition and caught what hurt them before it grew teeth. Nova's content found me because the algorithm knows fear from the shape of your thumbs. She had a pretty face that could pass for any town, expensive blonde ponytail, a bomber jacket with a patched-on compass, and nails like tiny shields. Her bio said, "Proof greater than promises, confidential, discreet." But her comments roared, "Yes, queen, drag him. We need part 2. Post the receipts." I'm not proud of how fast I trusted a stranger wearing eyeliner. But I had been trained by my job to believe the package, and by marriage to believe the person. Nova was a third thing. Person packaged as product, and I bought. The night I wear the deposit, Owen stirred and mumbled my name like he'd misplaced it. I tucked my phone under the pillow and lay very still, as if motion were an indictment. Outside, a late bus moaned up the hill. The apartment's old heater clanked like a light bulb, unstirring itself in stages. I stared at the ceiling and tried to storyboard our life. Every cut I made bled. By morning, the city steepled up from the foggy lake like it had to argue its case again. I drank coffee too hot and checked my phone as if it might apologize. Nova had sent a form. Habits, friends, places. She asked for recent photos of Owen. I chose one at the farmer's market, where he was reaching for apples, the sleeves of his sweater pushed up, the veins in his wrists like blue pencil lines. I attached it and hit send. My finger trembled, and the mug in my other hand warmed that tremble like a mother. I told myself this was precaution. I told myself truth was kinder early. I told myself a lot. What would I tell myself when truth arrived messy and wanted to eat at our table? And what kind of stranger exactly had I invited into our marriage? 3 days later, at 5:41 p.m., while I was smoothing copy for After the Storm and eating a granola bar that tasted like Chocolate's accountant, my phone buzzed with a notification from an account I didn't follow. @novashaw.pi posted a new video. The thumbnail was a blurred figure in a navy beanie walking under the neon halo of a cafe sign. My throat tightened like a fist making a new friend. I clicked with a thumb that wasn't entirely mine. The video opened on shaky dashcam footage. Rain jittered across the windshield like static. Nova's voice, steady, low, threaded through the sound of a wiper blade squeaking at one stubborn angle. Client suspected her husband of Monday night rendezvous, she said. We tailed him from a Capitol Hill office to a coffee bar in Fremont. The camera zoomed on a tall man tugging at his beanie. He had Owen's gait, the slight out-toe on the left. He pushed open the cafe door, the little bell jangling, and heat fog bloom clouded the glass. My tongue tasted metal. The clip cut to inside, a long lens shot through the window of him, standing at the counter, shoulders wet, shaking rain from his hand like a dog embarrassed by enthusiasm. I knew the motion the way you know your own signature. A woman slid into frame. Tan trench, damp hair, a freckle by her jaw. She touched his elbow. He didn't pull away. Nova's voice said, "Contact arrives. Note the body language." The woman rose upon her toes as if greeting a man who never learned to bend. She hugged him. He hugged back. Their faces were close enough that in stills you could argue about inches. My ribs cinched. I replayed the hug like it owed me money. At second 23, his hand slid up her back and held for a breath. At 25, her lips grazed, maybe, his cheek. The room's espresso machine hissed like a warning. The shot changed. They sat in a corner, heads bent. He passed her something under the table, a rectangle. Phone? Card? I felt cold all at once, and also separately in each finger. The captions did what captions do. Told you what to feel when feeling alone couldn't keep up. He thought he could hide in a crowd. He forgot the crowd has eyes. Come and stampede it in. Girl, run. Not the beanie. Once a cheat. My name wasn't on the screen. Nova never said client, but I tasted ownership like a blood blister in my mouth. This was mine. The stuffing had my fingerprints. Before the clip ended, Nova added a text overlay in white. Part 2, tomorrow, 6 p.m. She ended on a freeze frame of their hands almost touching, the space between like a dare. I closed my laptop without saving and stood so fast my chair rattled. The office smelled like toner and too many plants in one room, that humid, hopeful scent of people trying. I left without my umbrella, and the rain made my cardigan heavy, a penalty I accepted. The bus home moaned and swayed. In the window's reflection, I looked like someone who'd been rewritten. At our building's door, my keys clinked against the lock. Small bells at a funeral. I walked in to the smell of garlic and something browning. Owen stood at the stove, sleeves rolled, stirring onions in a pan. He smiled, that soft, crooked smile, and said, "Hey, kid!" The pan hissed. The knife gleamed. The radio murmured an old song that never learned to mind its own business. "How was your day?" he asked. "Long," I said, and my voice sounded like a stage whisper imitating a real one. He reached for a towel and brushed my sleeve. "You're soaked." I peeled the cardigan off like a skin that wasn't cooperating. It rained. "That's Seattle for you," he chuckled, a sound like a wooden drawer closing softly. "I made pasta." "Nice." The words sat on my tongue like a coin I didn't have change for. He kissed my temple. He smelled like onions and cedar, a home smell. I almost told him then. I almost held my phone between us like a small, terrible pet and asked, "Is this us?" But the clip soundtrack echoed. Part 2, tomorrow, 6 p.m. The way it asked me to wait felt like a test I didn't know how to pass. I set the table with too much care, aligning forks with the edge of the placemats as if neatness could barter with dread. The pasta tasted like someone else's dinner at our plates. He talked about a new feature deployment. I nodded and made shapes with my face that suggested listening and thought about beanies and corners and rectangles sliding under tables. I didn't sleep much. The dishwasher clicked, the heater clanked, the rain threaded and threaded. I lay beside my husband and tried to hear the difference between breathing and lying. What would tomorrow show me that I couldn't unsee? That night, I dreamt I was inside Nova's dashboard camera, trapped behind glass, beaded with rain. In the morning, the world still looked pixelated. Coffee tasted thin. My hands shook like the cup and I were negotiating a settlement. At 8:03 a.m., I searched, "Is it cheating if they hug?" and "Private Investigator Legality, TikTok." The results were part law, part gossip, part sermon. I read about entrapment, how it wasn't illegal in civil life the way it was for the police, how a PI could nudge a scene toward disclosure like a stage manager whispering cues. I clicked threads that used words like receipts and narratives and felt myself becoming a bad version of a journalist, more invested in story than fact. At 10 a.m., I texted Nova. Saw the video. Do not post his face. She replied fast. Never docs, blur always. Wanna talk? We scheduled a call for lunch. I wore a sweater that didn't itch. I wanted to be comfortable when I became someone else. Nova's voice over the phone sounded warmer than in her clips, like melted honey with an edge of citrus. First, are you okay? She asked. It wasn't practiced intimacy, the kind good hairdressers and interrogators know. I don't know yet. Okay, here's what we have, she said, and the shift from empathy to file cabinet crisp told me who she really was. Subject met with a woman at 6:12 p.m., sat for 47 minutes, exchanged an item, likely card or phone, ankles aren't clean, hugs on arrival and departure. Who is she? I asked. My voice scraped. She said, working on it. We'll get a face when she leaves in better light. If he repeats pattern, we reinforce. Patterns tell truth. I had the sense she was reading from a script she wrote for all of us, women with hands cold around their own phones. Do you ever do setups? Loyalty tests? I asked. She said, I record life as it happens. If life happens to test him, that's on life. I felt like you were in the cafe. She said, not apologizing. My associate was. We sit where we need to sit. I pictured a woman in a tan trench taking notes while teleporting to another table. Or maybe they were the same woman. My mind reached like a hand in a dark bag, grabbing shapes. Part 2 tonight, she said. If he meets again, we're on it. Please keep it off the platform. The request tastes like begging. She paused. I could hear the faint hush of a car heater, the click of turn signals like fingernails on a table. Posting is part of my business, but I don't ID clients or subjects. Shh, she softened her voice. A balm over a burn. I know it's hard. Truth is a splinter before it's relief. After the call, I sat at my desk and watched the minute hand doing its slow, faithful route, like a dog who never learned why we walk in circles. My coworker, Elle, asked if I'd try the new seasonal syrup, chestnut lace or something absurd, and the smell puffed out like sugar needing attention. I nodded, lied about deadlines, and kept my screen full of bland sentences about after rain. At 5:57 p.m., my phone shook again. Nova posted part 2. The thumbnail was the cafe's sign, blurred into comet tails. My pulse made a small drum in my ear. I put in headphones, not for privacy, but to trap the world. The clip opened on foot-level shots, boots crossing a wet crosswalk, puddles making tiny galaxy maps. Owen, unless the would-have-manufactured perfect match, walked into frame, shoulders hunched against mist. He waited inside, he checked his phone, then didn't. The woman arrived, hug. This time she handed him a manila envelope. He slid it into his backpack and looked down as if obeying a note. They spoke quickly, their hands did some choreography I couldn't parse. And then her palm touched his jaw. He flinched, but because of the touch or a noise off camera. He has smiled and stood. The clip froze on the outline of the envelope in his bag. Caption. This is where the story changes. Part 3, tomorrow, 6 p.m. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone into the sink and rinse the pixels until they confessed. I stalked the comments, hating them individually and together. Someone posted with a profile picture of a lighthouse. He's so done. Another posted with a cat in a sweater. She deserves better. I felt like a live wire thrown into a bowl of other people's opinions. But current had to go somewhere. At home, Owen's eyes were bright like he'd slept well. He held up a paper bag. Surprise, he said. Donuts from that place he like on 45th. Maple bars like they mean it. Thanks. My voice tried to figure out whether kindness was a trap. He put the bag on the counter and slid off this backpack. He looked what's the word? Relieved. It made me hate him for a brief hot second that smelled like burnt sugar. He moved around the kitchen with a clean economy, like the way people do when they know where everything is and like it that way. "Everything okay?" he asked. "What makes you ask?" My tone made him tilt his head. "You're sharper tonight." He held his palms open like he was showing they were empty. "Long day," I lied again, and it felt sloppier this time, like writing over whiteout. He stepped forward. "Want to split at Maple Bay?" "I'm not hungry." He studied me, then nodded, a man deciding not to push a door that might be locked. He went to the sink and washed his hands. The smell of cedar soap rose and made me want to cry for reasons that embarrassed me. He reached for me once more, then didn't. The heater sighed. The room was a body that had given up on posture. I told myself I'd confront him after part 3. I told myself I needed the full reel, but what if I no longer recognized our life by then? If the truth was movie, why did it keep cutting before the scene that could save us or ruin us properly?
Part 3 was not a cafe at all. At 6:03 p.m. the next day, Nova posted a vertical clip titled, "When the Envelope Opens." It began with a zoom on the manila flap, then jump cut to a dim hallway with flickering fluorescent lights, the kind that make every face look guilty. The camera hovered at the end of the corridor, a door opened, Owen stepped out, shoulders squared in a way I recognized from job interviews and doctor's offices. He glanced left and right, then walked quickly past the camera. The frame cut the corner of his sign, Oncology and Infusion Center. Below, Family Consult Rooms. My breath stopped like someone sat on it. I rewound. I paused. I read again. I felt the world shift from a flat map to an embossed globe. Every raised mountain a fact I hadn't factored. The envelope wasn't a love note. It was lab results or insurance forms. The woman wasn't a lover. She was wearing a hospital badge clipped to her pocket. My first emotion wasn't relief. It was anger. Black and fast at myself, at Nova, at the shape of stories. Then came fear. It smelled like disinfectant, and the phantom memory of latex gloves powdered your hands too long. My eyes stung. The heater ticked. The dishwasher clicked. Every household sound was a metronome for panic. The caption read, "Not all secrets are betrayals. Sometimes they're burdens." Nova's voiceover, softer than before, said, "Our subject wasn't meeting a lover. He was meeting a nurse navigator." The envelope held a second opinion referral and imaging requests. Today, the story bent. The comments flipped like a school of fish. "Oh my God, I judged," wrote Lighthouse. "Prayers up," said Cat in Sweater. "Girl, hug your man," someone demanded, as if tenderness could be timed by strangers. I stared at the sign until I could have traced it from memory. Then I called Nova. She answered on the first ring. She said, "You saw." "What is it?" I asked, and my voice sounded like my mother's when her fear got there before her reason. She said, "I can't speak to his diagnosis. Not my lane. But he met with oncology twice in the past week. The woman is a patient navigator. The envelope held an order and a list of appointment dates. Today, the story bet." "Why didn't you," my throat closed around the words, "tell me sooner?" She said, "I needed confirmation." She said, brisk again, "Assume and we do harm. Verify and we can pivot." "So you posted it." She said, "My platform helps me run cases. Also, this part matters. People think cheating is the only secret that breaks a marriage. It's not." "Take it down," I said. "All of it." She said, "Mara," and hearing my name made something crack. I anonymized, no faces, no names. "It's my life," I said. Cheeks hot, eyes hotter. "I did not hire you to make content. I hired you to tell me what was happening." She said, "I told you, and you know." I hung up. My phone felt slick. My hands felt like they were wearing the wrong skin. I sat on the edge of the tub because the bathroom has always been the room where I can pretend humidity is the culprit. The tile was cold through my jeans. The fan made a small engine noise. I tried to assemble a sentence that began with Owen and ended with something other than why. He came home at 6:40 with a bag of groceries and that same tired light under his eyes. He set the bag down. He looked at me. Whatever mask he'd been wearing all week slipped, and the face beneath was the same face I mirrored, but with a secret, trying to lift it from the inside. He said, "Kid." I said, "Don't." My voice trembled like I was shivering, though my body wasn't. He nodded once, a concession to the weather we'd both ignored. He pulled out a chair he sat. He put his hands on the table, the same palms that held our vows, the same palms that had fixed a leaky sink with more patience than I deserved. He took a breath and let it out through his nose, like he was cooling something on his tongue. He said, "I didn't tell you because I didn't have the words. And then I didn't tell you because I didn't want the look I'm seeing now. And then I didn't tell you because I thought I could fix it before it needed telling." He smiled without humor. "I've been very stupid about this. What is it?" My mouth tasted like the word please even before I said it. He said, "I found a lump." And the world made a small sound like a glass set down too hard. "Low chance it's bad. They think it's probably benign, but they need scans. I didn't want you to worry." My insides rearranged themselves with a terrible efficiency. "The woman?" "Nurse navigator. Her name's Anna. She's good at her job." "The cafe close to the clinic. Safer to meet there than have their receptionist recognize my name in the lobby and call insurance weirdness." "The envelope. Referrals, instructions, a schedule." He swallowed. I was scared. "I hired a PI." I said so quietly I almost didn't hear it. He blinked. "You what?" "I thought you were cheating." His mouth opened and closed. He rubbed his forehead. "Mara." "I know." We sat in that awful, honest air. The room smelled like grocery store paper and a little like shame, which smells, I've learned, faintly of old pennies. He reached his hand across the table, and I stared at it like an artifact in a museum whose plaque I hadn't read. What do you say when your worst suspicion turns into a different, tenderer fear and you realize that you've fed that suspicion with the stranger's appetite? And what else hidden under this was about to change shape again?
If the world had manners, the story would soften here. We would fold into each other, apologize in alternating breaths, and then pivot our lives to appointments and careful meals and movies watched with feet in one another's laps. But the world, like rain, in this city, does what it wants. The morning after Owen confessed, Nova posted a follow-up. "When a case pivots, accountability matters." It was a montage of blurred signs and the cafe's neon and a shot of the envelope's corner. The narration wasn't about us, it was about her. "We don't chase cheating, we chase truth," she said. "Sometimes that truth is medical, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's a lie we tell ourselves because fear feels like control." Her voice threaded under footage of her hands opening a notebook. The comments were kinder, less torches, more candles. But my name wasn't on any of them because I had never been named, and somehow that made the exposure worse. The hurt looked like everybody and nobody. It would never stop applying to someone. I texted Nova, "Stop posting about my case." She replied with a heart and a "You got this." I wanted to throw my phone off the Fremont Bridge and listen for the splash. Meanwhile, Owen and I took turns holding truth like a heavy box. We tried on new words. We said ultrasound and follow-up and low risk and benign so often the syllables lost their edges. The apartment smelled like ginger tea and worry. The hospital smelled like overripe bananas from the cafeteria and those wipes that promise to kill 99% of what they touch. We learned the geography of a waiting room, which chairs didn't put you under the TV, where the vents chill blew. We learned the names of nurses who had the kindness to memorize ours. I learned that Owen's right knee jiggles when he sits still for too long. Owen learned that my right hand trembles when I pretend it doesn't. We didn't talk about Nova. We walked around her like she was a puddle with no drain. On Thursday, after an imaging appointment that ended with, "Looks good, but wait for the radiologist," we went home and made eggs for dinner because cooking something fast felt like an act of defiance against long processes. I set plates on the table,
and Owen reached for the pepper grinder. His backpack tipped, unzipped. A folded paper slid out. The Mila envelope's child. I picked it up. It was a list, bullet-pointed in Owen's careful engineer handwriting. Call Anna, re-insurance code. Don't Google at 2 a.m. Tell Mara after confirm. Ask about genetic panel, Dad. Schedule scan number 2. Buy more cedar soap. I touched the indent of his pen strokes and felt my throat burn. You were going to tell me, I said. He said I was trying to deserve your calm, and I didn't know whether to love or hate him for it. We were learning how to love while standing in different weathers. Every time I reached, the air stung me differently than it had a week ago. But we kept reaching. That's what we'd promised at Golden Gardens. On Friday, Nova called me. I almost didn't answer. Then I did because ignoring a fire alarm doesn't unmake smoke. She said, I have to tell you something. The warmth was gone. This was professional ice. The woman from the cafe, Anna, contacted me. What? She said she saw me outside the clinic, recognized me. She follows my account. My stomach did a small, inelegant roll. Because of course she does. She asked if I was tailing someone. I said subject. She put it together. She's smart, Nova said, respect curling her voice. She told me to stop filming on medical property. She used words like policy and privacy with the kind of tone that becomes a letter if you ignore it. My cheeks burned. Good. I'm pivoting the content, Nova said. Lessons learned. No more case footage. I waited for a part where she apologized. The line filled with the sound of her turn signal. Click, click, click. Nova, I said, do you understand what you did to us? She said, I did my job and I did it well. You made my fear into a trailer. I told a story that helped people think beyond one conclusion. You hired me to find truth. I did. You used us, I said, and I let you. Silence. Then softer. Mara, I started this after my ex lied for a year. The only thing worse than public hurt is private hurt that never names itself. It was the first personal detail she'd given me. It felt like a coin tossed on a table. See, I bleed too. Maybe. But naming a thing isn't the same as owning it. She exhaled. I'll send you the RAW files, whatever we shot. Yours to keep. The gesture surprised me to cool the air. Thank you. Last thing, she said. There's something else. Off the record, but I can't pretend I didn't notice. She paused, searching for a tone that might fit in both our throats. Someone's been following me since your case started. My chest tightened. What? She said, a black SUV, plates with 3 sevens, showed up near your building, then again outside the clinic after Anna read me a policy. If it's your husband, he's bad at stealth and good at care. If it's not, watch your 6. I went to the window, the glass cool against my fingers. The street below wore its usual coat of water. A black SUV idled by the curb. Anton, a low purr. The driver's face was a shadow in a hood. I told myself it could be anyone ordering tacos. The smell of wet asphalt rose like memory. Hang up and call Owen, Nova said, voice suddenly very practical. Ask where he is. I did. He answered on the second ring. At QFC, he said. Grocery run. Want anything? Paper towels, I said automatically. My eyes stayed on the SUV. It pulled away with that unshowy decisiveness that only certain drivers have. A tiny wave of exhaust wetted the air. My fingertips tingled on the glass. Get the towels with the blue dots, not the paisley, I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to a pair of women, one buying paper goods and one watching a shadow. On it, he said, and I could hear the beep of a scanner, the clack of a cart, the background music that claims it's not trying too hard and always is. I hung up. Nova said, lock a door tonight, even if it's silly. I always do, I lied. We hung up. The apartment smelled like the eggs we'd made earlier and something else, like the moment before a match catches. I waited until Owen came home with the blue dot towels and a bag of clementines, because he can't refuse a small fruit that promises sweetness. I told him what Nova said. His faith drained and then flushed.
He set the bag down and steadied himself on the counter like he'd stepped off a moving walkway. "I should tell you something," he said. I braced. The room held its breath like a stagehand. 2 weeks ago, someone slipped a note under our door. No return address. It said, "You're being watched," and included a TikTok handle I didn't recognize. I threw it away. I thought it was spam. "What handle?" He looked miserable. @Nova.PI. I stared hard enough to feel a spot ache in my forehead. "What?" He said I thought it was a scammer using her name to sell cameras or something. I didn't want to scare you. The note, the SUV, Nova's signal clicks. My mind scrambled to assemble a narrative that didn't collapse under its own weight. I went to the trash under the sink, because of course it did, like a raccoon searching for proof. It was pickup day, the bag was gone. The space under the sink smelled like lemon cleaner and old onion skins. We stared at each other across the kitchen like contestants in a game show neither of us had auditioned for. My heart thudded in my throat. The rain started again. Thin, patient, eternal. If trust is a house, how many strange footsteps can the ports hold before the boards begin to say enough?
That night, I had a choice. The kind that isn't cinematic, but is decisive. Tell Owen I wanted Nova off the case entirely, or ask Nova to finish what she started, to dig into the SUV, the note, the shadow that had taken interest in us. I watched Owen sleep, the sheet curving over his back like a soft hill I'd climbed 1,000 times. The hum of the building felt louder at 2 a.m., a low, worldly purr. The smell of cedar soap still clung to the bathroom like fidelity. I'd hired Nova to confirm a simple story that turned out not simple. Now a new story pressed its nose to our window. At 3:12 a.m., I texted Nova, "Find the SUV." She wrote back at 3:13, "On it, but we do it my way. No posting until we decide." "We decide?" I typed, then deleted. I wrote instead, "Your way equals no laws broken." She sent a thumbs up. Then, "Meet tomorrow, noon, Pike Place Garage Level 3. Dark coat, don't bring him." I placed my phone face down, suddenly superstitious. Owen turned in his sleep and reached for me. His hand found my hip, warm through the sheet. I put my hand over his, palm to palm. 2 beats later, he made a content noise, something like a small boat tapping against a dock. I swallowed, the heater exhaled. Outside, a gull cried like it had misplaced a plan. A choice is a door. You can still turn back when your hand is on the knob. By morning, I had my coat on and my keys in my pocket. The knob turned itself. Was I protecting our marriage or just protecting my need to know?
The Pike Place garage smelled like oil and wet cardboard. A fluorescent light buzzed with the persistence of a mosquito at a window. My boots clicked on damp concrete, each step a neat little punctuation mark. Nova leaned against a pillar, bomber jacket zipped, hair in a precise ponytail that said, "I don't improvise." She held her takeout cup. Steam stitched the cold air. "You look like you slept," she said. "I recommend it." "You look like you monetize it," I said before I could be a better person. Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Walk." We circled the level, passing cars, beaded with rain's braille. Nova pointed, once, without looking like she was pointing, a black SUV with a parking stop on the dash. 3 sevens in the plate. A parking employee pushed a cart of cones nearby. The rubber squeak marked time. Nova held her phone at hip level, lens capped. "Ran the plate," she murmured, "registered to a Shell LLC with a downtown mailbox. The LLC's agent is an online service. Classic if you don't want to be found." "You said someone followed you?" "Yeah, but the angle's wrong. I think they followed my client list." My scalp prickled. "Meaning what?" She stopped. Her breath made a faint cloud. "Meaning this SUV's been near 3 other addresses in the last month. 2 past clients, 1 potential. One of those past clients had a restraining order hearing last week. The SUV was parked a block away." "Is this your enemy?" I asked, half joking. "Fully not." If I had an enemy with that kind of patience, they'd be better at hiding, she said. This looks like someone logging, not lunging. Logging what? Me and anyone who hires me. The elevator dinged in the distance. A couple spilled out, laughing, their laughter big enough to fill the cold. Nova's jaw ticked. We're going to do something I don't recommend. We're going to knock. She walked to the SUV and rapped the driver's window with a knuckle like a friendly cop in a movie that doesn't end well. The window hummed down. The driver was a woman about our age with a knit cap pulled low and a tired, competent face. She smelled faintly of peppermint gum. Her eyes were the kind that record first, react later. Help you? She said, a question without question marks. Hi, I'm lost. You a local? Her voice went bright dumb in a way I recognized as the costume. The woman blinked once, twice. Nope. Nova tilted her head, then let the dumb fall away like a cape. Why are you following my clients? Her eyes flicked to me. You must be Mara, she said, and every hair on my arms lifted like small birds flushing. My writing? I said, the word refusing to wear its coat. Your ad copy. You make a candle sound like a childhood. Nova's stance tightened. Who are you? The woman sighed as if we'd made her skip to the end of a joke. Avery? Avery Shaw. My brain did a skip. You're Nova, I said to Nova, then heard my own sentence and hated it. So you're her, Avery said, the one whose face you think you know. I'm sorry, I offered to the air, because surely one of us would have to catch it. Nova's smile was small as a blade. Of course she has my last name. Avery, her hair dark under the cap, her eyes not quite kind, tapped the steering wheel. We need to talk about what you're building, Nova. I'm building a business, and I'm building safety for women who deserve it. You're building a list, and someone else is building one off yours. The two of them looked hilarious and terrifying. Same height, same decade, different worlds. I felt like I'd wandered into a mirror maze where the reflections argued. Who do you work for? Nova asked. Avery glanced at me again, something like sympathy grazing her gaze. I work for myself, and sometimes for people who can't find another way. Which people? Nova said. The ones who can't DM you because their partners check their phones, the ones who aren't allowed to carry cash, the ones whose faces you'd blur and still make recognizable to someone who'd hurt them. A beat. Nova's jaw worked. You think I hurt people? I think attention is a blunt tool and you wave it like it's surgical, Avery said. Her voice stayed calm, which somehow made it sharper. Then why are you following my clients if you care so much about their safety? Nova snapped. Avery looked tired. Because a man with money and a patient mind is scraping your cases from public content, matching patterns, and selling the service to men like him who want to know when their girlfriends or wives reach out for help. She swallowed, the motion visible. Because when I noticed, I realized you wouldn't. The garage shifted in my vision, like a focus pull. The peppermint smell felt suddenly medicinal. So the SUV? Not him, me, trying to beat him to the list. The note under my door? Me. Stupid in hindsight. I thought you'd ping me through the handle. Instead, you pinged her. Nova snorted. So you're my shadow. Cute. Your shadow's bigger than you think, Avery said. Mine just has better shoes. Who's the man? I asked. Avery's eyes moved to me with a softness that made me trust her and resent that. Name I have is Coastline Partners, which is not a name. But the mailbox I traced the SUV's LLC to, guess who owns the suite? Coastline, Nova said quietly. Avery nodded. He's not following only you. He's following the need you monetize. He's found a way to turn fear into a map he can sell. My stomach lurched. The heater in the corner clicked loudly once, punctuating the sentence like a judge's gavel. Nova exhaled. Prove it, she said. Avery unlocked her door and handed Nova a manila envelope, the new totem of my life. Inside, photos printed on cheap paper, spreadsheet screenshots, a list of TikTok handles with hashtags circled, hashtag loyalty test, hashtag cheater caught, hashtag PI Storytime. Next to them, a column of dates and cross streets. I recognize one, ours. My name wasn't there, but my life was. I've been building a counter list, Avery said. It's not a solution, it's a warning. Nova flipped pages, and for once her face unperformed. You're good, she said. It sounded like an insult and a prayer. Avery shrugged. At this I am. Why tell us? I asked. Because you're at the center of this week's web, she said to me, then to Nova, and because I think you'll do something dramatic enough to flush him. Like what? Nova asked, a spark lighting in her like a match that likes to be struck. Avery started her engine. The vibration made my knee ache. Like, stop posting. Cold. And ask your clients to stop too. She looked at me. Close the story. You want me to disappear? Nova scoffed. That's not how you kill a lead. You starve it for a night and it moves to a new body. Then don't starve it. Feed it a poison. We stood in that bitter light while the word poison found places to hang in the garage. Which of us, I wondered, was willing to put the cup to our mouth first?
The plan, if you can call something so reckless a plan, formed in 20 minutes and a dozen texts. It involved 3 ingredients: visibility, misdirection, and the appetite of a man who thinks he can buy secrets. Nova would post a teaser for a live reveal. Biggest case pivot yet. The kind of phrasing that makes the algorithm salivate. She'd film it at the rooftop of a downtown garage where cameras were plentiful and escape routes few. Avery would tuck herself in a shadow with a lens so long it could watch a gull's thoughts. I would be there because apparently I'm the sort of person who hires one PI and believes another. We set it for 6 p.m. because, of course we did. The wind at the top of the garage tasted like metal and rain. The sky was the gray of a TV with no input, humming to itself. Nova paced, ponytail neat, jacket zipped, a microphone clipped like a small threat to her collar. I clutched a thermos of tea I didn't drink for the heat in my hands. My fingers felt like they belonged to someone doing something decent. At 5:58, Nova went live. Hey, team, she said, voice velvety as always. Tonight, we talk about what happens when the story we think we're chasing turns into the one we didn't know we needed. Comments scrolled like confetti falling upward. Hearts bubbled. The city below did its own scroll. Buses, umbrellas, slices of people moving on. At 6:07, a black SUV pulled onto the roof like it had paid extra to park near the plot. Avery's whisper brushed my ear from the shadow. That's not my car. The driver's door opened. A man got out. Mid-40s, expensive raincoat, face like it had practiced neutrality into a hobby. He scanned the roof with emotion I'd seen in movies about men who own yachts. He walked toward us as if we were exactly where we should be. Nova kept narrating for the live, her body angled to the camera, her eyeline flicking once to the man and away. She said, sometimes we discover the why behind the watch. Sometimes the watcher arrives. The man stopped 10 feet away. His cologne cut through the rain, citrus on steel. He said, Miss Shaw. And the way he said it told me he liked knowing names. Sir, Nova said, her smile sharp enough to slice citrus into perfect wheels. You're trespassing, he said, gesturing to the roof like he owned it. On my own live, she said. We rented this spot. We had. Avery had a friend at the garage. Their seat was in my pocket like a rabbit's foot made of paper. He considered that, then smiled as if we'd amuse him. You're making a mistake, he said. You don't know what you're stepping into. Explain it to me like your target demo, Nova said. He glanced at me. He said, you must be the wife. He didn't say my name. Relief and fury jostled for the front seat. I'm a person, I said, surprising myself. He tipped his head, not hearing. Miss Shaw, your content makes you money. Mine makes me more. Don't mess with the pipeline. What pipeline? Nova asked, her live holding steady, viewers multiplying like cells.
The one where scared people accidentally tell you who they are? He smiled a small expert smile. You tell me who they are. You do it daily. Avery's voice, a ghost's, flowed into my ear. License plate matches the mailbox. Sweet. This is him. Nova shifted, angled her body so the mic would catch him clean. Why follow me? Why not just scrape like everyone else? He laughed a little. Because I like to see the raw material, and because I like to know if my suppliers will stay in business. You think I work for you? Nova said. It wasn't a question, it was a diagnosis. You think I work for attention, he said, and attention pays better when hungry. Nova's breath made a small cloud. Attention turns, though. He said, for a day. Then it needs new meat. It happened faster than my brain could storyboard. Nova pivoted her phone, pointed it at him, and said gently to the live team, meet the reason I blur faces. The man lunged, not for her, but for the phone. In one motion, Avery stepped out of the shadow, camera up like a surprise she'd rehearsed. The man froze, split by 2 lenses. Security is on the way, Avery said calmly. We rented the roof. He weighed the variables, decided against a scene, and smoothed his coat. He said, you're making enemies, to Nova. She smiled. Welcome to the team. He glanced at me again as if recalculating the value of being seen by someone who hired a stranger to see for her. Then he turned, walked to the SUV, and left in a clean sweep. The live chat erupted. Who is he? OMG, this is wild. Protect Mara. Is this real? The last both insult and benediction. Nova cut the live. The roof felt suddenly too loud with only weather. My knees shook in an unphotogenic way. Avery lowered her camera and stretched her neck like a cat who'd won a nap. That was insane, I said, the words white in the call. That was Tuesday, Nova said, but her hands were trembling too. Avery showed us a frame on her screen, his face in perfect focus, the plate, the timestamp, the garage receipt, barely visible in my pocket like an Easter egg for a judge. You can take this to the police, she said. Stalking, privacy invasions, maybe more if we tie it to clients who were harmed. Nova nodded. I'll talk to a lawyer first. I looked at the picture of the man who thought he owned my fear. My fingers flexed like they were learning their job again. Had we cut the right wire, or just made room for a different bomb?
The police took our statements with the disinterested patience of people who learn human nature in shifts. The detective's office smelled like strong coffee and tired carpets. We handed over Avery's printouts, the garage receipt, the live recording. He raised an eyebrow at the converging women and asked, so you all met on TikTok? We said sort of, which was both euphemism and indictment. Owen and I drove home with the wipers slapping like applause. He held the wheel tight. His TMJ clicked once. You okay? He asked. I will be, I said. And you? He took a breath that seemed to shave him thinner on the inside. Radiologist called. Cystic. Benign. Follow-up in 6 months. The relief that hit me felt like stepping off a treadmill you didn't realize was moving. My knees went weak. The sidewalk blurred through the windshield. You're okay, I said, as if saying it twice could set it like glue. I'm okay, he said, and his mouth broke into a real smile, the kind that overlaps the one I married. We pulled into our spot. The building smelled faintly of curry and wet umbrellas. The apartment held our shape like a couch cushion remembering its owners. We sat at the table. I took his hand. I'm sorry, I said, for hiring her, for not asking you first, for believing a story because it matched a fear. I should have told you, he said, eyes wet in a way that made 9 water in sympathy. I tried to fix a thing I didn't break alone. We laughed at how Brooklyn our apology sounded in a Seattle kitchen. We cried too, but not like in movies, more like people who co-own the same sink and hate letting dishes sit overnight. Then we did the small, brave thing. We made dinner. The pan hissed, the timer beeps. The room began to smell like garlic again, like the life we'd built defaulting to itself. Nova took a week off posting. When she returned, her bio had a new line. No medical spaces, no active cases, no loyalty tests. She posted a video titled, When the Line is Your Brand, and it was less slick than usual, which read as sincerity. Avery sent me a text with a single photo, the mailbox suite with Coastline Partners gone, replaced by a for lease sign and a piece of cape that looked like a shrug.
The detective emailed, "Case active ongoing." And cop speak, that means don't ask daily. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb after 9 p.m. I started reading actual books again. Their papers smell like a school year you liked. Ona and I tried a new thing on Sundays. We left our phones at home and walked, hands stuffed in our jackets, counting dogs and naming the ones we'd adopt if we were brave in a different direction. Was that happiness? Or something quieter and maybe more sustainable, a truce with how little certainty the world offers?
I hired a PI from TikTok because I wanted a story with a villain and a hero and a high-definition ending. What I got was a messy anthology, a marriage wobbling, then writing, a woman who believed exposure can heal, another who believed secrecy can protect, and a man who believed profit could be extracted from the ache that ties all those beliefs together. I think about the minute I hit pay under Nova's video, how easy it felt to outsource that instinct to someone with better editing software. How fast the crowd arrived to hold my fear up to the light and decide its color. I let strangers audition for the role of my conscience. They were eager. They always will be. Here's what I know now. Trust is not a product. Suspicion is not a hobby. Truth doesn't arrive as content. It arrives as a person you love, wearing a scared face, standing in a kitchen that smells like onions, telling you something in a voice they hope you can carry. And privacy doesn't mean secrecy. It means choosing who gets to witness your life. I gave that choice away. I'm working on taking it back. When the algorithm coughs up a video that knows my pulse, I ask who benefits if I believe it. When I reach for my phone at midnight, I put it down and reach for Owen's hand. When I hear the rain on the windows, I listen for the spaces between drops. That's where the important pauses live. And if I ever need help again, I'll choose a person before I choose a platform.
In the end, the thing I feared most wasn't betrayal. It was being wrong about the person I loved. I was, and I'm grateful, because it taught me which stories deserve my attention and which deserve to be left on mute.